Are we enraptured by the rapture? A young preacher asked that question in his Sunday morning sermon several years ago. It was an excellent question then and an excellent sermon, and it's an excellent question now. At the time, there was worldwide political and social upheaval, leading to a renewed interest in the biblical prophecies and a renewed effort to relate the events of the day to those prophecies. That upheaval has continued to increase even to today, so the interest has escalated. The preacher pointed out in his lesson back then, though, how it's a mistake to be enraptured by the rapture because the doctrine was developed by men and violates the very clear teaching of the passages used to support the concept. Because this is an emotion-based reaction, and rapture means to fill with delight, and because Morning Minutes in the Bible is in the middle of the fulfillment of God's nation and land promises under Joshua, it's an appropriate subject for today's Morning Minutes in the Bible on Sensual Service Saturday. One thing the preacher didn't address was the problem of the foundational doctrine that God is a failure. See, its basic premise is that when God promised to give Abraham the land in Genesis 15 verses 18 through 21, his first attempt failed. It insists that when God told Joshua to take the land that he had given them, Joshua 1:2, it was going to turn out to be a failure. It is absolutely essential for us to understand that the basic premise of today's premillennial doctrines is that God failed to keep his promise. He was unable to give them the land or the kingdom, and Jesus must return to fulfill that promise with a 1,000-year earthly kingdom based in Jerusalem. Besides being thoroughly unbiblical, the doctrine creates a serious problem in that it undermines the very power of God. After all, if he couldn't keep his promises to Abraham or Joshua, then how can we trust him to keep any promise to anyone, including us? But God keeps his promises. The teaching is false. It contradicts the very clear statements of Joshua that God kept his promise and gave Israel the land, Joshua 21 verses 43 through 45. Notice some of the phrases in those verses. So Jehovah gave unto Israel all the land. They possessed it and dwelt therein. Jehovah gave them rest according to all that he swore. There failed not all. All came to pass. And then, to make sure they and us got the point, he repeated it in Joshua 23 verse 14. And ye know in all your hearts and in all your souls that not one thing hath failed of all the good things which Jehovah your God spake concerning you. All are come to pass unto you. Not one thing hath failed thereof. So, who are we to believe? Joshua, who said that God kept his promise, or our premillennial friends who say he failed? Don't get enraptured by the rapture. Yes, it appeals to our sensual side by tickling the emotions and bringing a false sense of delight of something grand happening in our lifetime. But never forget, if true, it means God is a failure who cannot be trusted. Now that should be enough to rein in our emotions and persuade us to put on our thinking caps when it comes to worshiping God and to be captured by the cross. Because, unlike their false version, the real God can be trusted to keep his promises, which means we can trust him to forgive us when we obey his will. Just some thoughts for today's Morning Minutes in the Bible on Sensual Service Saturday. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenny hoping you have a great day.